So it's been a couple days since this whole thing happened. I'm still sick, you can tell, but I didn't feel good not talking about this. I originally didn't want to talk about the Blizzard situation at first because I sound ridiculous with my nose. I thought we'd wait on it. I'm not getting better, so I figured we'd just talk about it today.
Yeah.
I was also waiting to see if they'd say more about it, and as of recording this, they really haven't. Alright, so this whole thing was true when we recorded it. However, Blizzard has since responded. Conveniently, I'd like to point out, on Friday night, at the very end of the news cycle, after pretty much everybody on YouTube had posted their weekly recap news videos, and after most of the article sites would have posted about it or had time to. Luckily, some of them still had time to pick up on this. So I just want to point that out and go over a couple of things that they said in what I would call is their really half-hearted response that doesn't solve anything. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to cover a couple of snippets of this response, and it will definitely be linked in the description down below. I will link to the first site I saw this on, which was actually Inven Global, but I know some other places like Polygon did cover the response that Blizzard issued. So in their response, Blizzard said that their vision is to bring the world together through epic entertainment, and they have values that apply here. Think globally, lead responsibly, and importantly, every voice matters. Encouraging everybody to share their point of view. I'd like to add in here, except when it's inconvenient. The actions that we took over the weekend are causing people to question if we are still committed to these values. We absolutely are, and I will explain. And I'll call bull on that. Our esports programs are an expression of our vision and our values. Esports exist to create opportunities for players from around the world, from different cultures and from different backgrounds, to come together to compete and share their passion for gaming. It is extremely important to us to protect these channels and the purpose they serve, to bring the world together through epic entertainment, celebrate our players, and build diverse and inclusive communities. Now, I want to point out that this is obvious if you have half of a brain cell, so I'm sure you all know this if you're watching the video. The purpose of esports is not to bring the world together. The purpose of esports, like any sport, is to make money. Whether that money is in direct sales or not is up for debate. I know a lot of esports competitions are not actually that lucrative, but it brings a lot of positive press and coverage to the games and to Blizzard themselves. So, Blizzard says, our esports tournament broadcast was used as a platform for a winner of this event to share his views with the world. We interview competitors who are at the top of their craft to share how they feel. We want to experience that moment with them. Hearing their excitement is a powerful way to bring us together. It makes Blizzard look good. Over the weekend, Blitzchung used his segment to make a statement about the situation in Hong Kong, in violation of rules he acknowledged and understood, and this is why we took action. Every voice matters, and we strongly encourage everyone in our community to share their viewpoints in the many places available to express themselves. However, the official broadcast needs to be about the tournament and to be a place where all are welcome. In support of that, we want to keep the official channels focused on the game. Now, you know what? Honestly, from the outside, I do get that. You want to make this about your game. However, they completely glance over the shoutcasters. They just talk about how they hire them to amplify the excitement of the game. They don't actually justify why the shoutcasters would be punished for this. And when addressing if these actions were based on the content of the message, they go on to say, the specific views expressed by Blitzchung were not a factor in the decision we made. I want to be clear. Our relationships in China had no influence on our decision. Again, where's the proof of that? There is no proof that your relationships in China did not have any impact on this. In fact, Blizzard has shown that they're, in my opinion, pretty picky and choosy about when they enforce these rules. We've seen before Blizzard in tournaments choose not to enforce this rule, and I think it's pretty obvious that this has to do with China. Now, they say that their relationships in China had no influence on the decision. So I ask, really, would this have been enforced if it was some third world country where you maybe had one player from there and 90% of the country couldn't afford to play your game? Would it really be enforced? I'm sure Blizzard would say, yeah. I call bull on that. I don't think it would be. I think they've made it pretty clear that they are willing to enforce these rules when it helps them financially, or at least when it could hurt them financially not to enforce it. And other times it doesn't really matter. Now, they go on to say they know Blitzchung played fair. He deserves his earnings, so they're going to give him his prize. At least that's how they make it sound. But they're still going to suspend him for 6 months, which, by the way, 6 months, yeah, is it more appropriate? Sure, I guess. Yeah, like you said in your response, it's more appropriate. I mean, it's the same way that an execution that doesn't cause the victim a lot of pain is more appropriate, but it's still an execution. You're still really hurting this person's Hearthstone career. And they say that after the 6 months, he can compete again if he chooses. I really hope he chooses not to. This is a complete joke. This guy's being punished for his political opinion. Yes, it's a private business. They have the right to do that. It's a bad look. They look like trash. Personally, I'm going to be thinking twice before spending more money on Activision Blizzard products. I don't know how this will affect me going forward. I know that moving forward, they're going to reduce his sentencing to 6 months suspension and the shoutcasters to 6 months suspension as well. And they close by saying that one of their goals at Blizzard is to make sure that every player everywhere in the world, regardless of political views, religious beliefs, race, gender, or any other consideration, always feels safe and welcome, both competing in and playing our games. At Blizzard, we are always listening and finding ways to improve. It is part of our culture. Thank you for your patience with us as we continue to learn. All right, so here's the thing. J. Allen Brack, who wrote this whole thing out, president of Blizzard Entertainment, I don't have any more patience for you. I do love some of your games. I love games like Overwatch. And on the Activision side of things, I actually really like some of the Call of Duties. I don't know how much money I want to spend on your products anymore. I don't personally feel safe. I don't personally feel welcome in your community after this. I don't feel like if I was in any sort of position where I said something that inconvenienced you, that you would in any way protect me for it or not throw me under the bus. And for that, why should I give you my money? I just don't see the point anymore in supporting Blizzard after this garbage. This is a pathetic, half-assed response. There's really nothing here that needs any further delving into. I'm going to cut back to the rest of our video that I recorded with good old T, because I think that the rest of it does apply, but I'm really sickened by this response, and I think it's pathetic, and I don't really have any more patience for them. I'm not saying that I'm permanently boycotting their company. I can't guarantee that, but for a long time, I'm definitely going to think twice when buying anything from Blizzard, and if I can get it on sale, I definitely will. Or if I can buy it used Blizzard, where you get literally no money and I get a key to your game, or a physical copy of something like Overwatch, I'm just going to do that and give you nothing. So, thanks for showing me what your company's really like. I appreciate it. And I'll get back to our normal video for the rest of this. But essentially, it's that if you are making Blizzard look bad and causing an outrage among a large community, they can just pull you. Like, it can just be like, hey, sorry, man, that's a violation of tournament rules. Goodbye. So the problem with this is, I'm sure there's a spirit of this rule that is somewhere meant to be used for good, right? If someone is an actual, and I'm not saying the meme of everyone's a Nazi, but an actual Nazi, and they get up on stage and they're wearing an armband and they say something super racist, it's like, okay, yeah, we don't want that here. Not the place for that. Right, that's pretty terrible. There's a right and a wrong. That's wrong. Get out. But when it can be so vague where it's like, hey, if you just say something that upsets enough people, you're gone.
Well, that's the idea of the precedent. Is like if this is something that's bad, then like other companies, and obviously people have come out and other companies have come out and said, this is stupid, we would never do this, which we've kind of talked about off the mic as well, as like, well, they're kind of just taking advantage of the publicity, I think, of like, hey, we're good, we would never do this, but it's also a good thing to see. Like, hey, this is not something that we condone, we wouldn't do this. Regardless, getting back on track, I think it sets a precedent of like, well, where does this line then stop? Because if you just upset a very small number of people, can you then get kicked off another platform?
Well, and we've seen time and time again on social media that it doesn't take that much to upset a large amount of people if they want to read into what you say.
Exactly.
So that's sort of the issue. Is the way the ruling is worded, to me, doesn't even seem like it necessarily needs to be political. It can just be, you are causing a public outcry and making us, the company, look bad. We could lose money from this. And even though it doesn't say that in the rule, that's kind of how this is being used. Therefore, goodbye. And I think that without even getting into the Hong Kong situation, because it's a complicated situation, it is a location in China that historically has had way more independence than other parts of China. I have my own opinions on it that I don't want to get super into. I think without getting into that, you should research it, by the way. You can know that what Blizzard is doing is wrong. Because they are essentially taking someone who has an opinion, who, because that opinion upsets China, which because China has so much money, their feelings on it matter. I can guarantee you, by the way, if they were upsetting some third world country that didn't have any money or stake in Blizzard, this rule wouldn't have been enforced. That's where the problem is for me. Is it's very clearly, in my opinion, driven by monetary gain, or the idea that we could lose money on this, therefore kick them to the curb.
And we're sacrificing free speech.
Well, and you're disavowing anyone attached to it too, like the fact that those two casters were also had their work with Blizzard terminated. Like, we're not working with them anymore. Like, just collateral damage. Anybody near this thing is getting nuked.
Yes,
is essentially what it is. This is the worst look I've seen out of a gaming company in a long time.
I've seen some good memes of where like EA is pretty grateful for Blizzard right now. You know what I mean? Like, it makes sense because Blizzard is really they've gone into the news cycle with this, and like I've gotten like politicians involved. Like, not necessarily they've gotten them involved, but politicians have like posted on Twitter.
Their stupidity has gotten politicians involved.
Yes, and so I mean this is really on a big stage. And people are really upset about this, and rightfully so. It's a completely horrible step in the right direction that Blizzard took. And the fact that it's getting so much pushback, I think, is a really good thing.
Yeah.
And it's good that Blizzard is going to be kind of the, I guess, model for, hey, don't make mistakes like this, because everyone will go after you. And it's on such a big scale with Twitter, Reddit. It's completely taken over all of my meme pages on Reddit. It's a good thing. And I think it also just it sets a boundary. I think that the public is setting a boundary for companies and for organizations like this.
One, two things. One, I'm sure we'll have gameplay in the background of something by Activision Blizzard. So I want to first off state that's old gameplay. I have not played an Activision or Blizzard game, since it's obviously Activision Blizzard is a company, since this has come out. So I don't want to seem like we're endorsing them by playing their games. But two, I think that people are getting sick of being punished for having personal beliefs. Because the way that the United States Constitution is written, and this is not a United States government company, but the way that the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights and all these things paint it, is that the government cannot come down on you for an opinion or speech, right? The problem is, companies still can. So that's understood. There are consequences for what you say. A company can kick you to the curb if they want to.
Sure.
People are sick of it, though. People are sick of companies being able to hide behind we're a company, we don't have to follow those rules excuse. They're just tired of it. And they're tired of companies acting like, we can do whatever we want because we're a private corporation and you said you like this, so goodbye. People don't want to see that anymore. Your personal beliefs should be respected. I guarantee you that if this was, like I said, a third world country that was going to be upset by this person's political statement, they would not have enforced it. And I guarantee you that there is a spirit of the rule that is meant to be used in good faith, and this is very clearly not good faith. So that's really all I have to say about it. I think we completely disavow the actions of Blizzard in this situation. It looks terrible, really bad look, terrible optics. I hope they reverse it. They haven't yet, and maybe by tomorrow, by the time this goes up, they'll have said something, but it's going up either way. So let us know what you think in the comments down below. We think it's a pretty unanimous, people don't like this, but hey, if you have a dissenting opinion on this one, I'm interested to hear it as long as you defend it. We'll be seeing you guys in the next one. Have a good day. Don't say anything that'll get you fired because, hail to the government. Goodbye.
Hail, Big Brother.